How's it going? It is another Tuesday at noon Eastern. That means it's time for Note to File. What's up, boys?
So, tech problems today, Brad. Tech problems all over. I guess everyone's updating their programs. Everyone's adding more security. All
Yeah,
of the different
LinkedIn is
portals are
bad.
broken. Anyone else feeling that today?
I just sent someone a message while we're waiting, and the words came out all the letters came in to get all munched up together. I had to refresh it. Never seen this before. Something's going on.
Yeah, is very weird. I noticed that the live stream disappeared for a while. So if you're watching and you made it, congratulations somehow against all odds.
Bless your heart.
That's right. You went to some extra effort. As always, you guys always happy to talk about whatever you guys are interested in. So feel free to leave some comments. Otherwise, I'm coming off of an FDA audit from last week, and I just wanted to kind of share what that's like. Anyone out there? There was a lot of interest about it when I posted about it. I don't know. What about you guys? Have you guys been through? I know you've probably been through FDA fair at this point.
No.
Dang.
I'm scared of it, man. I got respect for you. That I would have brought in my boy Pat Stone, maybe Edie and Darshawn. I wouldn't even have been there, man. I always try to avoid it.
Sure.
And going live now, probably get one, but I always try to stay
Right.
middle of the road on enrollment. I never want to be the outlier and enroll too many, but we do care about quality too. I always ask CRA, well, what's our screen fail ratio look like, and what's our DV? How are we compared to other sites? Because I never want to be an outlier and get audited,
Right.
for whatever reason. But it could happen randomly too. So
That's true.
I've
Fox,
avoided it.
you been through any Fox?
Yeah, so actually, I've done it as a site, as a high enroller, and I've done it as a manufacturer, which that gets insane. And they were both different experiences. And a lot of it honestly depends on the team that you get. Sometimes the FDA auditors are there to just make sure things are cool and they want to make sure you succeed. The others, you hear those horror stories about the FDA confiscating your trash bins and going through your trash to see if there's any HIPAA violation or Alcoa violation.
Wow.
It happens. It's true.
Dang. Shout out Von Trees. 3-2 this year. Oh, no findings. So
wow.
I hope you take
You a
plenty
care
of
access
vacations.
employee, Von Trees? What's going on?
Dang.
All right. Settle down. So we knew, we expected this. We were a high enroller and not by a little bit. We out enrolled, and we were out enrolling, Mayo Clinic and UCLA times 5. So of course we're a tiny site in Oklahoma. So I imagined that was going to, ring some bells somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a pivotal study or a phase 3 or?
It was a device, and it was it wasn't the first. I believe it was the second study they had done for this particular device.
Okay.
So you can consider that caveat if that's useful at all. That it was device. There was no drug, which kind of made it nicer in some ways. A little less accountability to deal with. The study had stopped enrolling almost 2 years ago, maybe more than that. But again, we were on the radar. The FDA called the PI's office. The office manager forwarded me the message and was like, "What is this?" And I was like, "Okay, it's cool. We were expecting this." I called the FDA auditor. I told her basically, "Cool, we're expecting you," which she actually seemed to sort of like. She was like, "Okay, well, it's cool because I'm shocked by how many times sites aren't expecting it. So I'm actually kind of glad to hear that you're expecting it." One of the first things she asked too was if the study was on paper or if any of it was done, with electronic systems. This was one of the first studies that we got when I started this company. It's all on paper, and she was actually relieved to hear that, which again I found sort of interesting.
Wow.
She was like, everything on paper is just so much easier, and you can agree or disagree, but it's interesting that that's the FDA's an FDA auditor stance.
VCs should be listening right now. Brad, can I ask you a question? Do you think you said this was 2 years? It hasn't been enrolling for 2 years. and you guys did really well, like no findings, and the CRA or the CRO were prepping you for an audit, basically.
Yes.
Think it would have been a different result if you would have already studied versus after 2 years when you've had time to clean up everything, if provided you had a good CRA?
It's a good question. I'd say it definitely helped because I mean we have been getting annoyingly like beaten up by the sponsor for 2 years because they knew it was coming. So like we're gonna hammer everything. Luckily, we did have a good CRA, and interestingly, the CRA was there the whole time in the room with the FDA
Oh, they brought her
and
there?
me.
The sponsor
Well,
sent her?
she was actually scheduled to come anyway. But of course, first thing we do after that was call up the sponsor and say we have an audit, and they're like, "We'll send support." Um, I was sort of expecting it to be like a secret back room support, like in another
Yeah.
area. And she's
War
like,
room, war room.
she's like, the last couple of times I've just asked the auditor if they care if I'm there, and they're fine with it. And I was like, okay. And she did, and auditor was like, sure.
Was
Which,
she sitting with the auditor, like, in the same room, or
yeah, yeah,
wow. So it
yeah.
wasn't like she was with you guys. You guys, I imagine, were somewhere else.
No, I was in there. We were all three in there
The whole
all day.
time?
Yeah.
So it was you, the CRA, and the auditor in there. Were you guys, like, quiet or talking?
Yeah. I will say, look, as you can, maybe imagine, like I was pretty relaxed about it and just tried to be a normal human being, and was like, here, tell us exactly what you need. I'll happily bring it to you. It's not like everything's a secret. Don't talk to me. And didn't take a very like defensive stance. I just tried to be cool, and I feel like it was fairly casual, at least in terms of the room, like the feeling in the room. Right, it wasn't tense. It wasn't, um, you know, standoffish or
Wow.
overly quiet. It was just pretty normal, like you would be working with a CRA
So,
if
like,
you were in there all day.
if you got a call, you would have step out.
Yeah, yeah, I did. I'd step out.
That'd be awkward, man, for a week in the room with a FDA auditor. Dude, I
Well,
got so
and
much respect for you.
let me tell you this though, she left like a day and a half earlier than I expected her to. Um,
Do you think that's
so
the right strategy, like what you took?
I think so. And again, she was very talkative. I asked her a lot of questions that weren't
Mhm.
related to our audit because I'm just interested, as any of us are.
Yeah.
And she said, there are sites that are like gripping the binders, to their chest and are like, what do you want? I'll give it to you. Otherwise, you're not going to get to look at anything. I'm going to hand it
I
to
see.
you one thing by one. And I was more like, tell me what you need. I'll gladly set it on the table. You can look at it. Any
Sh-
copy she made, I wanted to be aware of so that we could have a note of what she, wanted to scan and take back.
Do you um so she came for one study in particular. Did she look
Correct.
at others or just that one?
Just the one. She had what seems like a pretty narrow like assignment, in terms of like, I need to review this many ICFs. I need to review this many patients, like 30% of the enrolled patients.
I see.
And she had done some homework, like, so she knew which patients had the AEs and SAEs, which ones had the protocol deviations. And so she was able to sort of pick who she wanted to review. And interestingly, um, she really wanted to see the patients they didn't have a lot of data on, like the ones who didn't have a bunch of SAEs, because those are the ones they don't know about. And so she was looking for stuff that maybe didn't get reported.
Like looking for things that monitor didn't catch, maybe, or
Correct.
makes sense. So this sounds like a device that is probably going to get approval or is up for a decision soon.
Yeah, it had been submitted. I don't know the full timeline. I know that the auditor was very concerned, not concerned, but there was a timeline to get these audits done.
I see.
So I think, again, I don't speculate, but like, seems like the device could get approved
I see.
fairly soon, maybe.
So it's not a for cause audit where they're there to just see how you guys operate. They were there for that particular study And I'm guessing if she would have found questionable things there, they would probably schedule another audit for the other studies.
Yeah, the impression I got was that for the most part, she was mostly focused on fulfilling her assignment. And then aside from that, in without finding anything else to make her dig more, it was pretty much that was it. Now, I do think, again, I'm not trying to downplay, because she was very organized. She was very, you could
Was
tell
she
the
mean?
questions she
Like,
was
could you
asking
joke
were,
around with her, or
oh
she,
yeah, for sure.
nice.
We again, just normal human. It wasn't like,
Well, I hear
someone trying.
stories, man. Like some of them you don't want to play with. So I guess you got to read the room a bit,
Well,
maybe.
I do believe that. I believe in some ways, like, I don't want to say like we're lucky, but like we definitely got a good auditor who was
Gonna
not
Google
there to
that.
try to like kill us. Obviously, I think she did her job. She asked probing questions. She noted some things that she's like, okay, well, you guys did this wrong, but you caught it, you corrected it, and whatever the case may be. So there were some things that she did her job, but I don't want to give the impression it was just easy breezy.
I got so many questions. This might be the podcast of the century for sites here. Dr. Fox, I don't want to hog all the questions, man.
No, you're fine. Did it give you a little bit of self-reflection on what you could do better at your site?
No question. And because again, she was fairly instructive too, as she was like going through things. Like she would occasionally like give tips or thoughts, that I thought were useful. But again, as she's going through it, I'm like, I'm so happy that we were so attentive. And now I feel like we need that level of audit readiness, because let's be honest, it's hard to be audit ready all the time across all your studies. But it really made me be like, okay, well, this needs to be the bar, right? Like at all times, which is again is challenging to do.
Did she look at your SOPs and have you guys revise anything? Or
No, didn't ask for a single SOP.
oh, didn't I even
Um,
ask? Okay.
no,
Wow.
no. She asked for a list of all the past and current studies that the PI had worked on,
I
which was
remember your
fine.
post. Yeah, I remember your
And
post.
that was the only active study he had at the time. So I don't know if that's like a ensure that the PI actually has time to have the oversight, or if it's, I don't know
Well,
what
it
they're
might
looking for.
be if this error happened on this trial, we need to check
Yes,
these other
that
trials for
could
the
be.
same error.
Yeah, true.
Did she request a meeting with your PI?
She did. She wanted so when she initially called, she's like, it's okay if he's not there at the beginning. I know he's actually a vascular surgeon, so he's doing surgeries, and he's oftentimes not there, but he came very early on. And her first meeting with him was very just kind of get to know him. I could tell she was kind of feeling him out, asking about his practice and things like that. And she wanted to go see his surgery center, because that's where the surgeries took place. So we did that the following day, and we're able to take her over and tour. And she asked him a lot of questions about his oversight and sort of what our process was for communicating, and staying, ensuring he had proper oversight. The guy's done trials for 20 years. Again, the first doctor I worked with when I started the company. So he knows what to say. He knows how to conduct trials. He did a really good job. I think didn't give the auditor any reason to, the second guess. And again, she had told me some stories that, other situations where the PIs have no idea what's going on, and it's very clear.
What did she say? Like, can you tell us a story?
Yeah, and I guess I don't really know how much I can or can't. I don't think I'm saying anything that's
no details. Just like, what did the other
yeah.
sites do from
Oh,
her
just some
work?
crazy stuff. Like there's been places where like CRCs have left, and like they've taken or deleted data, like as a sort of like revenge. And so like the PI has no idea. And like a site that basically tried to reproduce the data that was stolen, like, so basically like redoing source that once existed but now doesn't exist.
Wow.
And again, the PI, or a lot of instances in which PIs are at the end of their careers and just don't seem to care. They're not taking it with them, where again we're sort of like,
So pen color is often the reason for forgery. They know that it's forgery through pen color or pen like depth. It's a really big one as well. But forgery is another huge one. It's a terrible, terrible thing.
yeah, I could see that.
Like
Todd, this is
signing for PI or
Yeah, it's bad.
interesting anecdotal but audit stories he's heard. The European regulators are more focused on providing SOPs, proving SOPs were followed, versus FDA is more focused on completeness, consistency, which I would say that's probably fair in terms of the vibe I got. It was more of a, consistency and completeness of the records and ensuring that we um, documented our A's and SAEs appropriately, reported them appropriately in the timelines and things like that. Hold on. Everyone in my house is getting sick, so bear with me. So yeah, I mean, she actually, the end closeout was just done via sort of a phone call, like the debrief with the PI. He had since she was leaving a little bit early, he had surgery scheduled, and she's like, you know what? Unless something crazy happens in the next half day, I come across, she already had looked at like 70% of what she needed to look at. And she's like, I feel pretty confident in what I see. So again, I was sort of like, that's a good sign, right?
Was there a good, because this was like one of your first studies, you said, right? Like
There was, yeah.
So you must have started screening like, what, 5 years ago or?
So I think early 2019.
Okay. And
Maybe, yeah.
I would imagine a lot of your coordinators are new.
So I was the coordinator.
Oh, you were the
in the beginning. I
Okay.
did most of the coordinating, and then we had a coordinator come in the middle because we started to sort of grow while the study was ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And then a third coordinator sort of finished it out. So it was actually handed off on 2 different occasions, so to speak, as a sort of lead coordinator.
Do you do anything differently now after the audit?
No, not specifically.
You're on electronic systems, right?
Well, that's true. So, I mean, that's different. And I feel like we didn't get that deep into that because I wanted to sort of ask her more. I had asked her, I got to ask her a little about like her thoughts on the new DCT guidance that FDA has, which the first thing she said was, what is that? And wasn't familiar. And this is someone who like,
wow, slap in the face to all you VCs out there.
well,
I'll stop.
she knows her stuff too. So I was actually kind of surprised that she hadn't really wasn't familiar with it. Actually sent it to her in the middle of the audit because she was like, oh, let me take a look. I'm actually interested. I'll read it.
Was she?
So I was curious again to get her thoughts, because at the end of the day, who do we have to, I don't know, worry about, or who do we have to work with? It's going to be that FDA auditor. So if you can't say, yeah, but aren't you reading all the marketing on LinkedIn? FDA auditor, they said like this is the future, like then they don't care about that, right?
Did she know who you were?
No, not to my knowledge.
Thank God.
I know. I've had some CRAs come in that do, and I'm always like, okay, good or bad? Which way?
Me too. It's usually good though. It's usually a good thing, but from an auditor, I wouldn't know. Wow, man, I got like tons of questions. But this is gonna be one of the
Feel
best
free. I'm just sort of
ever.
winging it here. So, well, again, an interesting conversation we had was that something she's seen a fair amount more of, I think, over the years, were sites who were sort of guided by sponsors on how to do things or a system to use, and then the site has to be the one to answer for it. So if it was wrong, you can't say like the sponsor made me do this.
Yep.
Because that doesn't fly.
Have you ever seen the disclaimer on the tax preparer people, those companies, where they say, hey, we'll help you file your taxes, but if you get audited, it's on you. We are not liable for what happens during that audit.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing, man. It's like all these people say that,
Yeah, of course it's liability, but a good sponsor, just like a good CPA, is going to help you if you get into that situation versus say, hey, it's not our fault. I'm guessing, Brad, your sponsor was more than helpful.
Yeah, they were
prepare.
very good and supportive. And again, there weren't a lot of. This was not like a very fancy study, so to speak. It wasn't particularly complex. Again, everything was paper based. There were e-pros, actually. There were e-diaries, which she did ask a lot about, but it didn't go, um, didn't go too crazy. I did have to provide like a screenshot of the EDC and what the audit trail looks like, along with what an investigator's signature looks like when applied, which I thought was kind of interesting. I didn't necessarily expect to have to do, but it makes sense.
Oh, you
I want to
showed
see
her
that.
like what it looks like?
Yeah. I think it just to sort of confirm that it has an audit trail, that it has a PI signature sort of
Were
denoted.
all your patients? Are you comfortable sharing like how many patients you randomized versus like the next highest enrolling site?
And I'll have to rely off of my memory. We had implanted 36 patients. I think the next highest enrolled in like the low 20s, but then the one below that was like 10, and then all the rest were like single digit. So
Okay.
we were pretty out in front. I believe, again, very sort of generally speaking, the other sites that they had chose to audit were the first couple of sites. So I think to her, led me to believe that's a strategy of like, who's going to have the biggest problems, right? Probably the
Your
first
guinea
site.
pigs.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then a site
I
at the
see.
end they want to see as
Ah.
well.
So you don't
But
want to be like one of the first sites screening either.
yeah, I mean, I guess
Shit.
ideally, yeah, you just
Man.
don't do too good at anything,
Yeah.
Damn it.
Don't be too fast or enroll too many.
Yeah, we're on some important obesity studies too.
Yep.
Were all your patients part of the PI's database, or were any from the community?
That's a good question, and it's something that she did ask and seemed to that the answer, I think, tends to change the way that she looks at these records. And I mean, in fairness, that makes sense. But actually, most of them were from advertising. This particular patient population. As a result, we didn't have a lot of. I mean, we had records on every patient as part of qualifying them to be in the trial, but they weren't as complete as something like a physician's actual patients.
What did you have, like a pharmacy record, or like?
We would have and again, I don't want to go like too deep into what the study is. I mean, some people probably figure it out, but we had records that were about the event that qualified them for the study, let's say.
Okay.
And anything up and as recent as we could get. So to sort of bridge that gap, so to speak. Sometimes the event happened 10 years ago. But obviously they've been seeing a doctor, all along that. And again, the inclusion exclusion are fairly broad for this study too. So that wasn't, again, you almost couldn't ask for a better
Could you use,
situation.
like, I don't know if you did this or not, but like when we get patients not within our practice and we know it's a crapshoot to get the records, Creo is working on something. I have to use it I'm going to try it out. We have our own intake form, right, where we give them,
Yep.
and then they list all their.
Yep.
Do you have something similar to that?
We do, and we did use it for this study.
And was she okay with that?
Yeah, she didn't seem to have any questions about it. That seemed fine. Obviously, we have to make sure that we confirm all that stuff, that they write. So, yeah, but we did use that. Hey, DM, it's been a while. How long of a notice? I believe she called on a Wednesday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Or it may have been a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, because you said you can't go to SOS, so yeah.
And she wanted to come on the Friday. So it was only a few days, like 3 days.
But you've been prepared for like 2 years by this.
Yeah, we pretty much ready for it.
So do you have an SOP on FDA audit readiness?
I do not. Don't tell them that. But
Oh,
Yeah.
so for any sites out there, there's a really important system of processes that you really should do within that first almost immediate. Like if the FDA shows up at your door, you should have an SOP in place to know exactly how to work with them. But there's also a lot of contractual obligations that you have to meet. You need to let your sponsor know ASAP when that happens. You have to give them a certain amount of time to make accommodations so that they can have representatives on site for you. There are rules that a lot of sites have in place for FDA audit readiness, so that everyone knows that if this happens, this is what we do. It's
Well,
right up there next to like disaster
one
recovery.
of the things you did ask was like, do we do anything different now? And I think I said no, but it did make me like, I want to do a presentation for everyone. Should be like, here's how we stay ready, because I was there and I did it, even though I hadn't really actively coordinated on it in quite some time. But I didn't want to throw my coordinator to the sharks, just sit there all day. So I did that, and I probably do it for any study that we have. But nonetheless, they need to be able to know.
But you didn't
how
bring
to
them
handle
with.
that.
You didn't bring anyone with you, like in the room. It was just you, the monitor, and the auditor.
Yeah, and if we had a question that required me to ask the other coordinator, I'd bring her in.
I see.
She was there in the building, but again, I don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, I guess, so to speak. Like, let's just keep it.
This is related to Nelson's question. Like, Nelson's saying, did the sponsor, how did they interact with you? Did they send or tell you anything that was helpful? Ask for daily calls. I will follow up and add one more. Did you ever feel like she was trying to trick you into doing something like a test to see if you're going to do it?
Yeah, good question. So the sponsor had been preparing us for quite some time. They had actually sent us a presentation about FDA audits. They sent us the FDA, like, what to have ready. This was like months ago, like, because again, they knew these were coming and we were likely to be, in the crosshair. So they'd been prepping us for quite some time. During the audit, they really didn't say much. But again, there was a CRA there, and she was technically an independent contractor. She didn't really work for the sponsor directly. I guess she's, again, independent. So I don't know if that plays any difference or whether it matters. But they did want daily calls after the auditor left. So we did do that. Just kind of give them a debrief of the day and sort of what they asked for, what happened, that kind of stuff. Obviously, this is a company with, I think this is their only product. So of course
I
they're
must
like
be nervous as hell, man. They must love you now, though.
It's been a lot of back and forth over the last several years. Obviously, we did a lot of volume, but that made us also a lot of work for them too, for a small sponsor. So yeah, it's been a love-hate relationship at times, but I think everybody's sort of.
I have to ask, Brad. I doubt you were paid for any of this if it was so old, right?
No.
What's their PEC score, Brad? Do you know their PEC?
It's actually not bad. Actually, pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Kelvin, good to see you, man. She didn't ask about 2111 compliance. Again, she did want to see like a screenshot of what the EDC looked like in terms of an audit trail and PI signature. This is a good question too. Did she have access? She must have had access because she knew what she was looking for. And she knew what I had submitted on like a promptly reportable information form already without having looked at the reg binder. She did specifically mention like matching ICF changes and protocol amendments with what she had from the IRB portal versus what was filed and in our binder. So she must have had access to, I don't know if it was the portal or through the FDA submission. I'm not sure how that works necessarily.
How ticky-tack did she get? Like, your training log doesn't have a version number, or your pages are not numbered on, like little things like that.
So the only thing I can really remember, this is maybe not ticky-tack, but like there was a discrepancy on a single data point out of everything she looked at between the source and the EDC. Because she had a printout of like what's in the EDC. It must have come from the sponsor, I guess, and it was a drop down box, and like we had checked like one too low of what it should have been. And this is through, again, like thousands of data points. I don't know how many she went through, but she did find one that she was like, these don't match. I was like, well, crap, let me look. And sure enough, like when I looked, it was wrong. And now it had nothing to do with inclusion exclusion. It had nothing to do with any kind of endpoint or anything like that. So I don't think it was anything significant. And
just data entry error.
Yeah. Other than that, there really wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't like, oh, here's a stray mark, or like you didn't.
I see.
Well,
it's probably helpful that
problems.
You've been through a few database locks, I'm guessing, with this sponsor.
Yeah.
So the data was like clean. That was one that probably fell through the cracks. And
yeah, I was actually really surprised because after all the oversight, I was kind of like, damn, how did that get through? And of course, she chose to look at that one.
Well, these CRAs are humans. I mean, we can do all the database selects you want, and maybe even AI is going to miss some stuff too, like in the future when AI is doing this.
Yeah, unless it was direct data entry without an additional source document to be wrong, then in which case it would be what it is. But yeah,
I wonder how she would feel about that.
Yeah, I feel like, again, I tried to sort of pick her brain on those sorts of things, and I think it's just not. I was a little surprised by how sort of a still traditional mindset, I guess, considering, and this is a very seasoned auditor.
That was going to be my next question. Junior, senior?
No, I think 30 years or something at the agency, so like not somebody who hasn't seen some stuff.
Did she tell you what her career, or she's just looking to retire?
No, yeah, she didn't really say. Of course, I was like, I bet you could go to industry and make some big bucks. And...
regulatory capture.
Right. No, it didn't really. Huh?
Did you say that? Like,
yeah, I really did.
Conversation.
What? And of course, she's like, yeah, people do that. I don't think she had any particular interest in that. I can't speak for her, but that was my impression.
We should do a personality test on these FDA auditors. I guarantee you they're mostly the same.
I mean, I mean, she seemed like an auditor, if that makes any sense. Like I totally get that vibe from the moment I talked to her on the phone. I felt like she was an auditor.
Good podcast guest. Did you invite her to know?
I asked her to, and she was like, I don't think I'd probably have to get approval and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, well, we'll figure it out if you want. And if not, then don't worry about it. But
at least you didn't say what's a podcast.
Right. That's a good point. So, I mean, all in all, again, I thought it was, considering what we've been through on this particular study, it's kind of what I expected. Maybe it was a little less stressful than I expected.
Yeah.
But also, like, from the beginning, I just wanted to be like, I was pretty relaxed about it. I was like, we've done everything we possibly can on this to make it good. So if there's anything out there, I don't know, there's nothing else I feel like we could have possibly done to do a good job.
2 years of action items and just mundane, like fix this and
looking back and going back through the same stuff over and over again. And again, most of it was perfectly fine to begin with. Of course, little things here and there.
Did you have deviations?
We had deviations, yeah. And there was I'm trying to recall,
like randomized deviation, like this person shouldn't have got in.
No, nothing like that. No. Okay. Yeah, no. Everyone who was in was supposed to be in. There were no major problems like at all. We had sort of the normal, because this was going on through COVID, so we had out of window deviations. Even she's like, generally we don't care so much about that. Obviously, there's a problem if like every single visit you do is out of window. That starts to look funky. But she also understood that how things had changed during COVID and how that had such an impact on sites and patients getting to sites and whatnot. So I feel like she kind of acknowledged, that can be the case.
Do you think that this is going to help you to get trials in the future because you've demonstrated quality?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt. And, I guess I have to answer yes now. And the question pops up on feasibility. Yes, we did an audit, and I can say, yeah, we didn't. There were no
I heard
findings.
sites post these letters, like the letters you're gonna get or whatever it's called, on their websites.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess it's not the worst idea. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny, and it was a little bit of a like poking fun because I'd never seen any site do it until Care Access was like, we did it, we passed an audit, and I was like, that's funny. So I just thought I would kind of play it up a little bit too, like because sites are being audited every day. I mean, it's not anything that fancy. I don't think it's nothing.
Right. And the warning letters you see that we read every now and then, people love those, but those are like egregious things that those sites do that get
They
posted.
tend to be right, like and that's kind of the impression I've gotten is like usually it's pretty major stuff when you read those. It's not like your
Yeah.
ticky tack things.
Well, like the last one I read, this PI randomized like 3 people knowing that they don't qualify. And I made the distinction between, well, it's different between if you accidentally do it and correct it versus just saying fuck it and doing it anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's basically the kind of things, like those latter kind of examples are what make those warning letters, at least the ones I've read so far. You don't see like innocent mistakes getting warning letters for the most part.
Yeah, that seems to generally be the case. I would agree. I don't think, again, most people who are coming in with good intentions and trying to do everything right are getting blasted. I mean, obviously there are cases of just pure incompetence. That happens for sure, but it seems to be more focused on the fraudulent or just the
fuck it, like the hubris,
egregious negligence, right?
Yeah,
or the flat out, this just isn't right, this should never have happened. And that happens too. Oh, remind me, I'll send you to a story of someone I actually knew, something they went through, and something I can't believe it actually happened within this decade.
Sounds juicy. Sounds like a juicy pod.
It does.
It is. It's pretty nasty.
What about your staff? You haven't trained your staff on this yet, like you said you were going to?
Well, and again, they've been through, at least the people on that study went through like what the sponsor provided and sort of preparation, I guess. So I guess it wasn't completely accurate to say that they had no like inclination, of what could go on. But I think it's more just like brought it to my attention of like how important it is to make sure, because again, it's easy because you can go a long time without this happening. And it happens, to sites that, you may not see one. But when it does happen, you sure as hell want to be ready.
Can you walk us through like a typical day, like where I just can't imagine, maybe because I can't sit still, but being in a room for 8 hours, like what percentage of the time are you talking versus head down
that's a good question. And honestly, I had a hard time with that, like, because I did have to just sit there quietly, which I'm not very good at.
Was it
as
awkward?
you can imagine. Yeah, at times. But again, it was mostly, she'd come in. We were already there and ready. She'd come in. We would kind of BS a little bit, as you would in the morning. And she would
like
kind of go to work. Yeah, pretty
weather.
much. Just whatever. Yeah. She'd come in, and at one point I think she was like, I'm gonna put my headphones in just so I can like go to work. And I was like, all right, go nuts, whatever you need, I'm here. If you have questions or anything you have, just feel free at any time, and we'll
I wonder what she's listening to.
I'm putting my headphones. She's listening to Note to File. She's like, what the fuck is this guy saying about me on the internet?
Dina attended a SOCR training put on by FDA investigators. More than 90% of clinical investigator inspections end in no action indicated. That makes sense. I thought it was closer to like 80, but that sounds.
Way to burst Brad's bubble. He's out here bragging about that. I'd be bragging too.
That's why, again, I thought it was funny because it's not like I don't think it's anything remarkable to be like, hey, you didn't screw up that bad. Like you didn't do anything egregiously terrible.
With a 2-year startup, I'll take that. You didn't screw up that bad award. Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's true. No, again, I mean, I'm obviously happy about it. Again, a little tongue in cheek to sort of like do a victory lap, but nonetheless.
What about lunch? Like, do you bring lunch? I'm just curious about all the details.
Yeah. So actually, she brought lunch. I think I knew better, but I was like, I'm ordering lunch if anyone wants anything. I mean, I know you're gonna say
you
no.
Said it like generic, like.
Yeah, just sort of generically. And so I ordered food, and I just ate. And I even said, hey, sorry, you're gonna listen to me chew. Sorry, we're all stuck in this room together, but
Did
I
you order
mean,
for the CRA too, or she got her own lunch?
no, she did her own thing.
Everyone's conservative on this
Yeah.
Holy
Oh,
crap.
I had a monitor who like I think we offered a bottle of water and they're like, I can't take that. I can't take that. And I was like, God, dude, come on.
Ridiculous.
So yeah, people are too careful sometimes, I guess.
I think it's ridiculous. What about like letting her walk around on her own, or you followed her?
No, yeah. I mean, she didn't. And I was also very open. I was like, look, anything you want to see, I'll bring it to you. I don't, all good. I try to just create as you can imagine, hopefully, I just try to create a layer of transparency. I'm like, whatever you want, you're welcome to. Obviously, I mean, that may not be entirely true, but you know what I mean. And so I walked her at one point to the device storage, but she really didn't wander around. I mean, the bathroom was like 15 feet away. I didn't follow her into the bathroom or to the bathroom. I was just like, go for it. So yeah, but we're also in an office that we had recently mostly moved almost everything out of. So there was almost nothing in there. I mean, even if she wanted to like come across something, there really wasn't anything there because we've moved most of the stuff out of there.
Do you think it's impossible for you to answer this, but do you think, like educated guess, it would have been just as successful of an outcome if you were not in the room with her, but in the room next door?
Probably, if I had to guess in this particular case. And, Heather, and again, this is like, I heard the inspector talk about this because every site's different. And she talked about sites where the coordinator's crying and nervous and they are like so hesitant to give information to the FDA, which sounds to me like it just pissed her off. Like when that was the case,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to go in and be like, again, like you, you're the FDA. Like if you want it, you're going to figure it out and you're going to figure it out. You're going to see it. So I might as well just
Did they
lay
look
it
at
all
your
out.
contract?
Say that again.
Did they look at your contract at all?
No, I don't believe so. We tend to not file them in the regulatory binders.
She didn't ask for it or anything.
No. But again, I mean, I just brought her specifically what she asked for, nothing more than that. But at the same time, as she was free to, go through it however she chose. Again, it's like the balance, right? Like you don't want to be like, here, wander around and poke around at stuff, but at the same time, there's no use in trying to like make it harder on them.
Did you ever feel she was grilling you for like a period of time, or?
So, and that goes back to your other question I didn't answer. Like, she was more talkative than I thought she would be, and at first I thought maybe it was like a strategy because I mean they're trained to like do this stuff, right? Like I thought it was trying to get me to say stuff, but I got the impression pretty quickly that I mean if that was her strategy, it wasn't very good because I feel like she just wanted to actually talk, and it was all pretty unrelated. Now, I think there were definitely some situations where like she was asking questions and looking for, if I had said something dumb, I could see it opening up a can of worms, especially when the PI was there and asking the PI, like, what are your obligations as the clinical investigator?
She asked him.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that'd be a case where you wouldn't have to answer for him because he knows what he's doing. He's been.
Yeah, luckily. He'd been prepped too. He'd gone through the same presentation and gotten the same materials like that everyone has in terms
sponsors
of
prepped you guys, right? You mentioned the sponsors. Mm-hmm. Were you sweating at all, like ever during this 4 days?
No, not really. I'm trying to think of. Oh, I tell you. So I don't know. I posted about this. We had a flood in our office at one point. Some of the binders had been affected. There were a couple of binders that got wet. So we had to let them dry out. And I think, we took them out of the binder and refiled them. So she had gone through a binder and it was missing a section, like a visit, like an important visit to qualify the patient. Mm-hmm. And I was like, crap. Because she's like, where is this at? And I was like, oh, I flipped through the binder a couple of times. I'm like, it's not here. And I started to kind of sweat because I couldn't find it. Well, we went back and it was like subject 006, and I was like, okay, this one was wet. I bet it just got separated from the rest of it, and it was misfiled with like patient 046 or something like that. So I was able to find it pretty quickly and get it back
Man,
in there.
that
But
could
at
have
first I was
turned
like, oh
left
shit,
real
where is this
quick.
whole missing section?
She could have said, "Where's your SOP disaster recovery plan?" and all this. She could have went
Well,
like,
we had filed a bunch of stuff about it. And honestly, again, she was like, I've seen fires and I've seen all kinds of disasters. And so, I feel like, again, maybe her experience helped it not be such a big deal that it may have been to a newer or maybe less seasoned auditor.
"Sounds like you got a cool one, man."
Definitely. I mean, I definitely think that's true. And Kelvin, I'm sure she was, you know, but I mean, honestly, I hope she didn't get the impression I was anxious, because I think I came in pretty cool from the beginning.
I never seen Brad anxious.
I'm usually pretty good about not getting that way. So I did get a little sweaty over that though, because again, I was like, oh, there's like a whole section that qualifies the patient that's not here. I knew it was there. I knew it was there somewhere because it had been gone through a million times. So it had just gotten misfiled when it was being dried out. So
You know
that
what?
was perfectly fine.
Sometimes these CRAs, like when they make copies, like we've been accused of like you lost the source when
Yep.
now we use Creo, but back in my other site, well, I know it was here before. Where did you guys put it? And the coordinator's like, I swear to God, dude, she moved it. Like, or she took it home with her or something. Like it's possible that stuff happens.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it was went about as well as I could ask. So
Wow.
I'm
Congrats,
just going to
man.
knock on wood and hope that we can take what we learned from that and keep applying it to our other stuff and keep rocking and rolling.
If you get audited again, would you do the same exact thing yourself, or would you like bring in ED or?
It may depend on the circumstances of the trial, or I mean, I
Like
can't think
ROI
of.
for you, ROI wise, right? I'm assuming you sat through it because you've never experienced it before, and if this become like a regular thing, let's say you get like a mega site, right? You wouldn't sit through every FDA audit?
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, that's probably true. Or maybe I would. Maybe it'd be my job.
Maybe you would, yeah, full time
Maybe
job.
everyone would get lucky and a lot less LinkedIn posting and more sitting through audits.
This shit's interesting to me, man.
So, Brad, you're actually on the SOS board or panel for that, talking about the audits and PI oversight and work with that. I would imagine that you could also share your stories during the conference.
Yeah, there's probably a lot more depth I'd get into, and definitely more in person. Probably, I would say, be more comfortable saying something that's not being recorded. But yeah, and you see Von Trees. I mean, I'm glad. I sat there. You sit there. I mean, I feel like you. Again, it's like a balance between like ensuring that you're not letting them just wander, but also like I'm not like staring at them for 8 hours. What are you doing? Don't. What is she touching? What is she doing?
Man, I just couldn't. I don't know how you did it, dude. Were you just doing other stuff, like just working on other shit?
Yeah, I was trying to clean up all my email, my 700 emails or whatever that stacked up in my inbox. Or I did get up and like I had to move around, so I'd like get up and just kind of like do a small lap in the building, like for a couple of minutes.
Wow, it's good stories, man.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much it. I mean
Hopefully, it doesn't happen again.
Horribly exciting.
Sounds like a complete waste of time, honestly, but something that needs to get done. And
well, that's I had asked her to like about because she had mentioned doing remote visit, like remote auditing, and of course, not unlike sites, she's like, I hated it. You can't tell really what's going on. She had mentioned doing a remote audit and like finding all these issues, and then being like, I wonder what it would have been like if we had gone on site. How much more would we find? Like if that's what they're showing us in a remote audit, what could be found by being on site? And I guess they ended up going on site later, to check it out because it was a bad deal. But I think you're right. I mean, we have to do it, but hopefully it's a waste of time, right? I mean, you want it to be a waste of time because that means
Right.
everybody did their job correctly and there's nothing to worry about.
Correct. Boring in this case is better than exciting.
Yeah, so I would say it was boring in a good way.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool to talk to like a real on the ground, like FDA auditor. I thought it was really valuable and sort of insightful in a lot of ways.
Did she give you her contact like for later too?
Yeah, I've got her info for sure.
What was the premise of that? Like, contact me anytime you have questions, or
Yeah, I think it's just part of what they have to do anyway in the beginning. So I got a card and also like a nice form with like email addresses and contacts for FDA and
wow,
who to talk to in different instances.
nice.
So yeah, again,
SaveOurSites.com. Pick Brad's brain one-on-one, guys. What other chance do you have like this?
Well, I'm just
SaveOurSites.com.
glad. I'm glad it's over. You said this was looming. You knew it was going to happen. It's done. You're good. You can have a good holiday now. It's out of the way.
yeah, I mean, hopefully that means they're not going to be back. Fingers crossed.
Don't jinx it, man.
I mean, they'll be back for something at some point. Hopefully, I mean,
Yeah.
good. It's not a bad thing, because again, it means we did well, right? So again, you sort of suffer for your
I
success
think
in a way.
Kelvin's asking if you have a QA department yet.
Not officially. This is something that is sort of like next on the horizon, for us to get something more formal, especially as we're starting. Yeah, and especially as we're starting to expand into like more remote locations that are far away from us, where I can't be there to like look at it all the time. So I think that's definitely something that's next in our sort of trajectory. It's hard, as you guys know, probably to bring in like non-revenue generating positions at certain points.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day, you're not going to have any revenue if you don't keep your stuff clean.
Yep. So QA compliance officers are one of the things that happen when you get into large, mid-sized networks. People who can literally own it. That way, I mean, they can babysit monitoring visits. They can make sure you're always audit ready, like you were saying. It's really hard to do for the boots on the ground to always be like that. But when you add that extra layer, it's also very helpful for your feasibility and quality. So it's definitely an investment, but you have to have a pretty good financial battery before you do it.
Yeah. Again, I think that's probably a ongoing struggle for smaller sites, if I had to guess. I mean, obviously we can have like small, sort of QA teams that are not officially dedicated only to doing that, but we're checking each other's work, and but again, it's not quite as formal or obviously not dedicated. And again, I like you. I think it's a smart idea, a good idea.
Well, if you think about that's what pharma does and manufacturers. There's an entire QA team dedicated to that. Even people who are dedicated to FDA audits. There's an FDA audit. That's part of the SOP. You send it over to this team of specialized individuals who know exactly what to do.
Yeah, we're trying to do that too. That's where I think people like ED and Petstone or consultants like that, who, by the way, they're coming to SOS. So get your networking done, guys. I think that's where that comes in handy, like maybe outsourcing that sometimes and until you're ready for full time.
Right. Yeah, definitely not a bad idea to at least have them in your Rolodex, right? I mean, because when you need them, they're going to be invaluable.
And when you really need them, they're more expensive. Right. When you don't need them,
True.
it's like a bank. You really need a loan? A little harder. You don't need one? That's when we want to give you money.
Right. Yeah, when you need it, that's when it costs you the most.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Well, anything in the last couple minutes? I got a call right after this, but I mean, I didn't really intend to take up the whole time with the FDA stuff. But
this might have been one of the most amazing podcasts in the history of clinical research.
You never know. It's probably going to be referenced so many times. Every time someone has an FDA audit, they're going to look at your podcast, Brad.
Not that there's that many, but this has got to be a top 5 most insightful for site owners, because no one talks about this stuff. It's just theories. This is actually what happened.
I just want to say congratulations. I know the first one's really tough and you went through it. The fact that it was your first one and it was like that is so eye-opening. I mean,
And again,
That
it
was
was an
cool.
early study. It was probably maybe the third study we were ever awarded. And it was first device study we were awarded. I mean, again, I've had worked on this stuff in the past, so it wasn't new per se. But for us, it was, and it was also one of the studies that got us in a big like growth phase because of the volume and because of the financial ramifications. So it was an important study for us in a lot of ways, and it's just another nice sort of another nice little I don't know, plant your flag to be like, also we passed the FDA audit.
It's a great milestone, Brad. Congrats,
Exactly.
man.
That's the word I was looking for. Milestone.
Yeah, congrats, man. We're proud of you at SOS, and how ironic or unironic that you were on that panel before we ever knew about
So
this.
you guys did this to me, basically. It was
The universe.
yeah, okay, that's perfect. It was like you need to, you know what, you need a little firsthand experience so you can talk better, speak
Well,
better to
now
this.
people need to buy their tickets because, like, people look. I'm gonna check the tickets right now. You guys need to go there. SaveOurSites.com. I'm done telling you
Yeah,
guys about
no,
this.
go check out saveoursites.com. We're getting it's a cap on tickets now, trying to keep it, an event where there's value and not just bodies. So not don't want to oversell. Make sure
So
that
Brad,
there's space.
you introduced me to Jed. You want
Mm-hmm.
to tell the team about Jed, because anyone who registered for Save Our Sites may be getting an email from Jed very soon.
Yeah, so I mean, look, we are, what is it, 7 site owners, that came together to do this, and we obviously, I think, have expertise in our respective fields, but we are not party planners. We're not conference event planners. And me and Dr. Fox had gone to Y Prime's innovation gathering, and we're really impressed by what they put on in terms of not just another conference, so to speak. So we got some help, and got some great people helping us put this conference on, because I think when it comes to content, we can nail it, but we need help. We need help with the rest, and that's where again, utilize the experts that are out there. So I'm really looking forward, to the support they're going to give and help us make it a valuable, worth coming to, uh, show.
Yep, agree. Congrats again, Brad.
Yeah,
Amazing
thanks, guys.
episode of No Control.
Hats off, man. Big one. Huge
All right,
victory.
guys. Next Tuesday, I think we got Jason Palisota from Clinitiative. Come talk some BD. Everybody needs new studies. So come noon Eastern next Tuesday, guys. I'll catch you later.
All right. Bye, everyone.